Hey, how you doing? How's your mama now? So, today's story about me, my cousin, and my retarded ex, and a very pissed off pelican. Excuse the bedhead. I took my ex and my cousin Christopher, the other Chris, fishing one night. So we're all out there laughing, cutting up, having a good time, and my bait got stolen, so I pulled my line in, rebaited my hook. I had about a 2 ounce weight on it. And I cast my line out, right? And it goes soaring out through the air. At the same time, this pelican was gracefully gliding by. And the weight goes bop and knocks the shit out of the pelican. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Because the pelican immediately drops down to the water. I'm like, oh my God, I just killed a freaking wild animal with a damn weight. He pops up out of the water, shakes his head a little. I'm like, okay, he's all right. He's just knocked a little stupid and possibly a little upset. And I'm like, okay, we're all good. My cousin's laughing at me. The ex is laughing at me. Hell, I had to laugh at me. I kind of felt bad, but the way it just kind of and phew, splash, it was funny, okay? So I feel a tug on my line. I'm like, damn, I done caught a bite in the first few seconds. That bait's been in the water. Let's do this. So I go to set the hook. And I set the hook, and that pelican is out there in the water, and he's like, Whack! What the hell? I feel the fight. So I'm, reeling, and that thing, and all of a sudden I see it sink underwater as I snatch the shit out of my pole. I'm like, oh dear God in heaven, I have caught a pelican. And my crazy ass cousin comes over and he's like, no, you're lying. I'm like, no, dude, look. And I started to reel it a little slow, and the pelican's and starts flipping the fuck out, and my line starts bouncing. He's like, oh shit, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna leave the hook stuck in the pelican, but I gotta bring the pelican in somehow. And I'm feeling horrible about this because I don't know where the pelican's hooked at. All I know is I got to get this hook out of this pelican. I feel horrible now. I didn't just bop him upside the head. I actually caught the pelican. So I'm trying to be easy and reel this pelican in closer and closer. And this pelican is losing its shit. It's trying to take off flying, and I'm bringing it back down to the water. I mean, as far as fights go with fish and stuff like that, this pelican probably had a lot more fight to it than a 45-pound black drum. Okay. So I finally get him up to the dock, and I'm like, yeah, there's only one way to bring this joker out of the water and onto the concrete, and I'm gonna have to lift him. And I feel like such a dickbag at this point, because even though I don't like pelicans, I don't like hurting animals that don't hurt me. So I took a deep breath and I popped him up onto the concrete. Well, he's squawking and flapping, and I'm trying to see where the hell the hook's at while he's flapping, and this thing is pissed. Highly pissed. So the ex comes over, and my cousin's over there laughing like hell, and I'm like, shut up, I hurt the poor animal. And they're like, well, what are you gonna do now? I'm like, fuck, I don't know. And I'm thinking, right? Well, I'm like, well, I've watched a lot of animal rescue shows and National Geographic, and it seems that whenever they like throw a blanket or a towel over the bird's head and they grab the beak, the bird calms down. And I'm like, okay, that makes complete logical sense to me. So I'm like, go get the towel out of my truck. So get the towel. I'm like, okay, you two, I need you to throw the towel over his head, grab his beak. When you do that, I'm going to grab the line and get the hook out so we can set him free. Makes complete sense, right? Both of these assholes looked dead at me and in unison, without planning it, said, fuck you. You throw the towel over that motherfucker's head and grab his beak. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I've got a grown-ass man who is 6'3", over 200 pounds, and then I have my ex over here, Mr. Air Force vet, and y'all two are scared of one bird. About that time, that bird goes clap with that big-ass beak, and I promise you the bass in that beak, it would rival some car stereos. And they're like, that's exactly why we ain't touching that fucking bird. I'm like, okay, well, I guess the one out of three of us with the bigger balls will have to do it. So I grab the towel and I throw it over his head. And right before I go to grab for his beak, he shakes that towel off and side eyes me like, bitch, I wish you would. And I'm like, well, shit, that didn't work as planned. Oh, hell. Them two are cackling like hyenas. And I'm like, y'all are of absolutely no fucking use in this world. I swear to God, you aren't. Both of you should have been swallowed. So, once again, I throw the towel. I get it over its head, snatch its beak just in time. And I'm like, okay, I've got the fucking bird. Can you at least get the hook out? And they're laughing. I'm like, this ain't a time to laugh, okay? This big bitch is fighting, and it's fighting good. If he gets loose, we're all going to be fucked. So my cousin finally grabs the line, snatches the hook out. Luckily, it was only caught up real deep in his feathers, so he wasn't bleeding or anything like that. Gets the hook out. And I'm like, shit, now I gotta let go of this bird. And they're laughing. They're like, yeah, you gotta let go of this bird. Them motherfuckers done run 25 feet behind me. So I got the towel in my hand. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna loosen up the towel just enough for me to let go of the bird and take towel and all. I snatch that towel, run like hell, turn around. That bird looks at me with the most hate I have ever seen come from an animal. Shakes his head again, claps his beak a couple times just to let me know, hey, you come near me again with that towel, I'm gonna fuck you up straight up. We going a straight OG to the streets with it. And I'm like, bro, just be free, you know? Turns around, flies off, but not before it shits on the concrete, just to, add to the disrespect. And them two assholes are still laughing like hell till they were crying. So yeah, I didn't beat them. I wanted to, but I didn't. But yeah, fishing with two dumbasses. Hope you enjoyed that.